So leadership and management are essentially about relationships between people. So why would these relationships be any different when doing business in Asia? Well, there are a number of values that influence the way that relationships are conducted in Asia that may have an influence on leadership and management. The two values that we're going to look at in particular in this topic are harmony and an emphasis on religion in daily life. So first of all, in considering harmony, harmony is regarded as the goal of Confucian life. Now, why do I bring up Confucius? Well, Confucianism is a philosophy that some people practice as a religion. However, Confucianism has had a major influence in the countries of Korea, China, Japan, Vietnam, Singapore, and a number of other countries in Asia. So with such a strong influence of Confucianism on these societies in the past and even up until today, we must consider how harmony, as the goal of Confucianism, plays a role in business and management. But let's look at some of those major principles of Confucianism first. So societies and organizations achieve harmony by following what's called the Wulun. The Wulun is the 5 cardinal relationships of Confucianism. The first of these is the relationship between the ruler and the subject. The second is the relationship between father and son. The third is the relationship between husband and wife. The fourth is the relationship of elder to younger brother. And the fifth is the relationship between friends. Of course, this implies a hierarchy of relationships. That the first of those, the two pairs, is superior. So in that sense, the ruler is superior to the follower should follow what the ruler says. Some people have used this to impose a fairly authoritarian system upon various people. However, that's not what Confucianism is primarily about. Confucianism primarily is about achieving harmony between groups by following certain roles and patterns. The second part of achieving harmony, according to Confucianism, is basically following a number of virtues. The first of these virtues that we want to look at is Ren. And Ren, the character is actually a person. This is the radical for person. And this is the number 2. And what the concept of Ren, or benevolence, implies is that there is a care, concern for other people that must be expressed in a practical way. So that's Ren. The next value that we consider is what's called Yi. Yi is the value of righteousness. And this value speaks about that right conduct, that emphasis on doing the right thing, the emphasis on trying to fulfill your obligations as a person to help another person, etc. The final virtue is what we call Li. Now, Li is all about ritual propriety. And in fact, it means following various rites. In the old days, they used to follow certain dance movements. They used to follow prescribed roles, etc. But basically, it was about following those pathways that have been laid down to achieve some sense of self-discipline and self-control. So these virtues and those 5 cardinal relationships, if we follow them according to the original ideals of Confucianism, we should achieve some kind of harmony in society and in organization. Now, harmony is not sameness. It's not about being the same. Harmony means recognizing the other players in the orchestra and forming a tune to produce a harmony. How does this apply to doing business in Asia? Well, these are some of the ideals that are in the minds of a number of people who come from those Confucian-influenced societies. Of course, an ideal is not always followed, and sometimes in practice rarely are followed. But it's a good idea to have an understanding of these relationships and these virtues to understand that this thinking has influenced the way that people conduct relationships in a number of Asian countries. The next aspect of doing business in Asia that we want to consider is the role of religion in daily life. Now, for many people in the West, religion is considered essentially a private matter and doesn't have a great impact upon what they do in their daily lives. However, this is not the case in many Asian countries. So for example, if you go to an Asian restaurant, perhaps a Chinese restaurant in Malaysia or in Singapore, you may see a kitchen god, or you may see an altar or idol. This represents that the owners are acknowledging the role of the gods in their business and that this plays a role in their daily life in the restaurant. The second thing you might know or experience if you travel to mainly Muslim countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia is that daily life is punctuated by the 5 prayers. So it's important that you understand that this will have an impact on the way that life is conducted in these countries. And even though you may not be part of those religions or you may not practice religion yourself, a good awareness of the religions that predominate in the countries that you're doing business in will help you to get a greater understanding of how people think and how people live their daily lives.